Even though we're definitely not in a proxy war, the US want to pass wartime powers in order to help the people of Ukraine more efficiently. Definitely not to sell more weapons unchecked or anything. Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth. We've got a fantastic story for you today, but if you want to see these stories unedited and uncensored, join me every day on Rumble at these times. We put the video up there and it stays up there in all its filthy glory, with all its uncensored truth, with experts that wouldn't be able to speak anywhere else. Join us there every day, and remember, the whole video is up there on Rumble. 5 new episodes every week, completely free. There's a link in the description. Now, let's get into today's story. Jeffrey Sachs is in trouble again for talking about the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline and who could have sabotaged it. Meanwhile, bipartisan representatives in US Congress are trying to amend a bill so the American military-industrial complex can sell as many weapons to Ukraine, even more than they need, completely unchecked. Is this war being used as a commercial exercise? Was it always a commercial exercise? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. Let's have a look at Jeffrey Sachs.
And one more point I want to make about democracy, because we're in a democracy forum where we treat democracy as the good. The most violent country in the world in the 19th century, by far, was perhaps the most democratic or second most democratic, and that was Britain. You can be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States. It's been by far involved
Jeffrey,
in war.
stop now.
I like Jeffrey. Everywhere he goes, they shut him down eventually. I would like a cafe latte, and I'd like a little bit of cinnamon. Wait a second now. Why invite Jeffrey Sachs to the Global Democracy Forum or wherever it is if you only want him to say stuff that you already agree with? Doubtlessly, the American military-industrial complex has had an evident and obvious influence on American foreign policy. If you look at the Afghanistan war, if you look at the Vietnam War, the Korean War, if you look at American military campaigns and try to somehow align them with the interests of, say, ordinary American people, I'm sure you would find some tension there. Well, thank God we went to Vietnam. Now we've got noodles at a price that's right. Thank God we bombed Afghanistan, because now we can...
The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States.
He raises an interesting point, and you know me, I'm British as all hell, and I have to admit that Britain was the forerunner of this kind of imperialism and colonialism, and I would add, of course, that how America has adjusted that model is it isn't all flags anymore, it's the logo. The logo of the corporation has replaced the nationalistic flag-based project. It's concealed now. That's why when I had a conversation with Jocko Willink, he was able to say that there isn't an evident project of American expansionism, because now it's done by Halliburton or BlackRock or concealed energy interests. Would you agree? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat if you think the American military is used to meet the agenda of corporate interests, or if it's generally and genuinely helping American people. Let me know in the chat.
Jeffrey, stop now. Jeffrey, I'm your moderator.
Jeffrey, I'm your mother, and I'm telling you, I smell booze on your breath. Have you got an erection?
And it's enough.
Okay, I'm done.
People love Jeffrey, don't they? I love Jeffrey. I'd not heard of Jeffrey 2 weeks ago. Now I actually love him. A lot of the love is based on this.
That's quite a statement as well.
When Jeffrey Sachs says democracy at home, imperialism abroad, I do wonder what he means. Does he mean the appearance of freedom, the ability to buy stuff, to sort of be free to walk down the street? Because if you think about it literally, did any of you vote for the war in Afghanistan? Did any of you vote for any of the American military-industrial complex benefiting projects that have been in perpetual motion since about 1950 or something, as far as I remember? What I would suggest is there's the appearance of democracy in so much as we get to vote once in a while. Who knows how those elections will go, though, kids? Who's counting in those votes. And abroad, there is brutality and tyranny. It's pretty clear, but I would extend that to a lack of democracy domestically also. Now, what we're seeing with this new proposed bill is to deregulate the military-industrial complex in much the same way we saw the financial industry deregulated in the 80s and 90s, and we all know that that ultimately led to the financial irresponsibility that led to the 2008 crash, where unregulated companies and organisations could trade and bundle in ways that were hugely irresponsible, that they knew would crash the economy, but they knew that they would get away with it because the problem is too bad to ultimately deal with. Now, scale that up to actual military matters and consider the consequences. They're not going to have to pay for it if there is some sort of mad nuclear war. They've probably got all their bunkers built already. So I suppose I'm saying, did what we learned from the 2008 crash lead you to think more deregulation in an even more dangerous industry is the way to go? Or do you think that the military-industrial complex has to be held to account? That American taxpayer dollars should go towards service people if it's part of the military budget, rather than 50% of the Pentagon's money going straight into the hands of military-industrial complex, which has been the case since 2001. Let's look at this story in more detail. Okay, so this is some brief stats on American military history. There are only 3 countries in the world that America hasn't invaded or has never seen a US military presence: Andorra, Bhutan, and Liechtenstein. At this point, they might as well do those ones just to complete the set, like Monopoly. The United States has invaded or fought in 84 of the 193 countries recognised by the United Nations and has been militarily involved with 191 of 193. It was engaged in 46 military interventions from 1948 to 1991. This can't always be humanitarianism, can it? It can't always be, we're just trying to help 46 times, because surely by now the help has been administered. This is from Common Dreams and helps us to understand the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine and how that could possibly intersect with US military-industrial complex incentives. As Russia's attack on Ukraine drags on, the world is dealing with a lot of uncertainty at every stage. Predictions about the war have done poorly when met with the cold, hard reality of modern conflict. One thing has been certain from the start: the US defense industry is going to cash in. A recent example of this came last week when Senators Jack Reed, Democrat, and Jim Inhofe, Republican, proposed a new amendment to this year's National Defense Authorization Act. One Democrat, one Republican, same cup. The proposal would give the Department of Defense wartime powers that would free it to buy huge amounts of artillery and other munitions using multi-year contracts. Ultimately, that's an economic imperative that requires a humanitarian angle to sell it, but it seems like it's economically guided as an idea. The amendment would also authorise the Pentagon to skip competitive contracting for Ukraine-related deals, including billions of dollars worth of contracts to refill US stockpiles, and it would waive other provisions aimed at stopping weapons makers from overcharging taxpayers. Waive them. There are provisions that stop weapons makers from overcharging taxpayers. Now, what did you just learn in the pandemic? Would you have liked a bill that prevented Big Pharma from overcharging taxpayers on certain medical products? I would have liked that, because the data is now in. They did overcharge. They made huge profits, the biggest profits in their history. Do you want to see comparable deregulation for the military-industrial complex? You see what happened in the financial sector as a result of deregulation and a lack of ability to democratically hold accountable to people participating in that. Do you want that when it comes to missiles? I don't. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. When we're on Rumble, we're able to go into more detail and bring guests in that can speak in an uncensored way, in a way you would never get away with on this platform. That's why you should join us there 5 times a week. Videos stream at these times, but they're up all day, and it's worth clicking on and signing up and tuning in. As an unnamed congressional aide told Defense News, the move would allow contractors to produce far more than Ukraine needs. Well, that by definition is crazy, isn't it? Please, we need weapons. How about more weapons than you need? Well, actually, even under these circumstances, that would be too much. Too much for who? Us. Oh, yeah, right. No, of course. Anyway, have all these weapons. Oh, taxpayers! Instead, we're buying for a two-front war. It's hard to think of something as high on everybody's list as buying a ton of munitions for the next few years for our operational plans against China and continuing to supply Ukraine, the source said. Do you think that operational plans against China means a war with China? Because that doesn't sound like a happy holiday. That don't sound like a fun hobby. That don't sound like a lark, does it? A war with China. What's going on now? You run out of, because there's a Can't we do Andorra, Bhutan and Liechtenstein before China? I mean, of course, that will be a terrible humanitarian disaster, but at least it wouldn't destroy the whole planet. In other words, lawmakers and defence contractors are taking advantage of Ukraine to get their weapons wish list, according to Bill Hartung of the Quincy Institute. It's part of the larger push to exploit the war in Ukraine to jack up Pentagon spending for things that have nothing to do with defending Ukraine or any likely future scenario, Hartung said. Like when they used the COVID money to buy drones and armoured military police vehicles. As Defence News notes, the proposed legislation also authorises contracts for 20,000 AIM-120 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, which Ukraine has not fired extensively, if at all. You know what you guys need? Yes, of course, we need food and we need a diplomatic solution to this ongoing war. Yes, but even more than that, you need 20,000 AIM-120 air-to-air missiles. Oh, we've not used them extensively. What do you mean extensively? We've not used them at all. And that's why you need 20,000 of them at a price that's right. Oh, taxpayer! The package also includes purchases of several other missiles that seem to go far beyond Kiev's wish list. They're laddering it up with extras like they're selling you a car. 1 cup holder, 2 cup holders, AIM-120 missiles. Oh no, I don't use them extensively. I'll get you 20,000 just in case. Notably, it's unclear whether these weapons would actually be useful in the case of a US-China war. Or so are they preparing for the next war? Or how many wars ahead are they? They're running out of countries. If you are watching this from Andorra, Liechtenstein or Bhutan, get yourself a metal umbrella. It's building stockpiles for a major ground war in the future. Oh no, Mark Kansian of the Centre for Strategic and International Studies told Defence News. This is not the list you would use for China. For China, we'd have a very different list. Well, as long as you've got a list for every potential war, we can all relax nice and easy in our beds, crossing our fingers that tonight ain't the night that the old AIM-120 is ultimately fired because I was just bored of not pushing that button. In related news, Lockheed Martin announced Tuesday that it plans to expand its production of the High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, better known as HIMARS, by more than 50%. The decision follows months of positive publicity for the weapons system. What's it doing? Going out with Taylor Swift? How's it getting positive? Hey, look at this weapons system. Oh, it's crazy. It's edgy. It's a new Harry Styles. That weapons system is wearing like a lady's top and some earrings. I like that weapons system. It's in line with our culture. Good. Oh, taxpayers! Month of positive publicity for the weapons system, which seems to have sparked increased interest from governments in Eastern Europe. Oh yeah, we got to be like them with the new Harry Styles weapons. This is fantastic stuff. It's so cool, man. I don't need publicity for a weapon. It's a last resort. The announcement comes just a month after the Army said it wanted to double HIMARS production and triple production of certain types of artillery in response to the war in Ukraine. This type of boost would require new or at least dramatically expanded production facilities, raising concern that it will be difficult to scale back down in the future, which would be bad news for everyone except for the military-industrial complex for whom this entire situation appears to have been constructed. But I don't know that for sure. I'm not an expert in global politics. But over on Rumble, every day, we get great guests like Aaron Mate, Jocko Willink, Tulsi Gabbard, Jordan Peterson, Eckhart Tolle, who's not an expert on military-grade missiles, but he will help you to relax if you find one hurtling towards your fucking house. That's why you should join us there every single day. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Please sign up to my mailing list, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel. More importantly, though, join us on Rumble every day. See you next time. Stay free.